What's up, everybody? Welcome to the virtual real estate classroom. I'm going to get through this kind of quick today because I know, everybody's busy and I want to make sure that you guys get what you need to hear and, not have to deal with the sales pitch and just get, learn how to buy a house in a relatively quick period of time. So I'm also not a professional speaker, so you might hear me like stumbling over my words and saying and things like that. So just wanted to give you that little heads up before I get into this. So let me get into this. So let's go over some quick ground rules real quick, and then we'll go from there and we'll get right into this stuff. So quick ground rules real fast. This is going to be really brief. It's going to be really informative. Like I said, it's going to be everything you need that you need to buy a house. Taking notes is recommended, but it's not mandatory. It's not, like I said, it's not a sales pitch. There isn't some kind of pitch that's coming at the end. So this is literally just for your benefit here to teach you guys how to buy a house. And if you find that you want to use me as your real estate agent at the end, that's perfectly fine. That's not what this is for, though. So you feel free to email me separately. If you want to talk about that more in person, you can email me separately outside of this whole virtual classroom. And that's my email address there for you guys. You can screenshot that or write it down, however you want to do it. And then let's get right into the good stuff here. Okay, so first, real quick, the Philly special is basically 10-year tax abatements. If you are one of the buyers who are buying new construction, that basically means you're not going to be paying taxes on the building itself, which is considered the improvements. They call buildings improvements. You're just going to pay taxes on the land, not the improvement, aka the building. So your taxes for new construction might be as low as like $600 or $700 a year, depending on how or where you buy. Sometimes a little more. So here's the thing. We'll go through the timeline first. So the timeline is you want to create a detailed wants and needs list. And usually your wants list is a lot more than the needs list. The needs list is, those are your deal breakers, the needs. And then the wants are obviously if I get it, it's great. That's awesome. First, and then you want to connect with a real estate agent. You can be me or whoever you're working with already. And if you don't have someone, hey, I'm right here. That's about as much of a sales pitch as you're going to get today. So then you're going to go through, you want to connect with a mortgage professional, which is really, really important. Let me emphasize that, because you want to get a pre-approval so you know exactly what you can afford. And you might get pre-approved for $300 or $400. That doesn't mean you have to spend $300 or $400. You can spend less, but you want to know how much you can maximally afford, because that way at least you know what you're capable of. And if you get pre-approved for $300 and you want to buy a house for $200, that's totally fine. There's nothing wrong with that. Then you get to go to the fun part, which is actually looking at homes. And know this, it's a process of elimination, not selection. So pick 2 or 3 neighborhoods and focus on those. And then as you start to find out what you like and what's available, start cutting things out. Like, okay, maybe I don't want to look Fairmount, Northern Liberties, and South Philly. Well, I'm starting to really I want to be north of Market Street. So let me, I want to cut out South Philly. And then you start cutting things out, things like that. So pay attention to that stuff as well. Make an offer and receive the seller acceptance. That's pretty much once you find the house, you get the offer in, seller accepts it, and then we move on. Now, before we get into the transaction itself, we're going to talk about who is involved. And there are a lot of people involved in a real estate transaction. On average, it's like 22 different people. So I'm not going to get into all of them, but I'm going to get into the main players, which is obviously one, your real estate agent. Of course, there's one for a buyer, one for a seller. Sometimes the agent represents both buyer and seller, but always will be a real estate agent there for the most part. Then you're going to have a mortgage professional. So if you're not paying cash for the house, you're going to have a mortgage person involved. Then you're going to have the title company. These are the people that are responsible for moving the ownership or the deed from the seller to the buyer, and making sure that the buyer, you as a home buyer, don't inherit unpaid taxes and unpaid bills, and then you have to pay for those since the seller didn't. Not going to happen. Title company is going to protect you from that. Insurance professional, home insurance, pretty straightforward there. Geico, Allstate, State Farm, whatever. Home inspector. So if you're buying a house, assuming you're not buying it as is, you're going to want to have the house inspected. So this is where you hire a home inspector. 99% of the time, you're going to get a home inspection, a radon inspection, and a termite inspection. Those are the 3 most common inspections. And then obviously the contractors. So when you do find something wrong, like maybe the roof is busted, well, let's get the contractors out there to take a look at it and see what the quote will be to fix it. And then maybe we ask the seller to credit us an amount for that fix. So moving right along. So the next step is the initial offer and the first negotiation. So we're going to get into, first you want to review the comps and make sure that everything in the area is around the same price as what you're offering for it. And hopefully it is, and hopefully you're not overpaying. The way to find out what a comp is you want to have a home that's actually sold in the last 6 months, like actually sold. And it has to be within the last 6 months, because that keeps it relevant. You don't want something that sold 3.5 years ago. Something that's in 20% of the square footage. So 1,000 square foot home would comp to an 800 or 1,200, 2,000 square feet, 1,600 square foot home to a 2,400 square foot home. They want to be within that 20% square footage range. Want to have the same bedroom count, the same side of a border street. So if you're on the north side of Washington Avenue versus the south side of Washington Avenue, obviously Point Breeze and Graduate Hospital are not the same. So you want to make sure they're on the same side of that border street, or Broad Street, or whatever the other street, whatever the border street is. Want to make sure in the city, within 0.25 miles, you want to have them close, because in the city, you get outside of that range, it starts to change into a different neighborhood. So in the suburbs, this is about a 1 mile radius, not 0.25, because the suburbs is a little bit more spaced out. And then you want to have a status of sold, not active or pending. Like, you can ask whatever you want. You can ask for $1 million, but if it didn't sell for $1 million, don't worry about what houses are selling for. Let's find out what they sold for. And then seller will accept, counter, or decline your offer. So you're going to get your buyer. They're either going to just say, hey, F you, I don't want your offer, or they're going to say, here, you offered me 200, but I want 205. So that's the counter offer, or they just plain out accept the offer. Bidding war situations, I'll talk about that on a future slide on what you can do to make sure that you win the bidding war, or at least put you in the best position to win. Then we'll talk about the first deposit after the offer is accepted. Now we're starting to get into the deal itself here. So now your offer's been accepted. Your first deposit is now due in the first 5 to 10 days, or first 5 days. 5 days. So that's when you need to submit that certified bank check to the seller. And then all of that offer is like a lot of paperwork. It's about 50 pages of paperwork. So you're actually going to send all of that paperwork. That's going to be like 90% of all the paperwork you see in the deal is going to be right here when you write this offer. And throughout the rest of the deal, it's really not a whole bunch of paperwork until you get to settlement. So that's a benefit there. So, and a lot of it's digital now, so you don't even have to, no killing trees or any of that stuff. So, moving right along. Okay, so now we've gotten to the deal itself, which is where your offer gets accepted, and now we're moving into the first 5 to 10 days. Like I already said, within the first 5 days, you have to get that first deposit due, and now if settlement is within 30 days, that check has to be a certified bank check. It can't be a personal check. If it's outside of 30 days, it can be personal. Then you want to perform your due diligence, which is your inspections, your home, your termite radon. We went over that. They're mostly those are the 3 most common inspections we usually do. And then you want to complete your mortgage application. So after me and you will be working as your real estate agent. I'll be working on the inspections and the due diligence stuff with you. And on the other side of this spectrum, you'll be working with your lender to be getting this mortgage application and getting all the financials that they're going to be requiring from you as well. So that's on that side. Then winning a bidding war, I probably should have put this slide a little bit sooner, but since we're kind of getting into the deal now, but like if you are in a multiple bid situation and you want to win this thing, write a letter to the seller, appeal to their emotions. I think video does even better than a letter, because it kind of lets you see 90% of body language is of communication is body language. So let them see you, let them hear you, let them, observe your behavior. Video is always better. An escalation clause could be like if you want to offer $200,000 with an escalation up to $215,000. Basically what that means is if another offer comes in at like 207, that means your offer is going to change automatically from 207 to 208. So you don't have to spend the whole, it's better than just offering 215 straight, because why offer 215 if you only have to offer 208? Makes sense? So modify inspection terms. So you could say, instead of doing due diligence where you would get a home inspection and then ask for credits and things, you could just say, well, my own inspection is just for informational purposes only, Mr. Seller. I'm not going to actually ask for anything. I'm just going to check to make sure that nothing's horribly wrong. And as long as nothing's horribly wrong, I won't ask for anything. So that's kind of appealing. You can cover items up to a certain point. You could say like, all right, I'll do my home inspection, and as long as all of the damage is under $5,000, then I'm good. I'm not going to ask for anything. And that's another way to appeal to them as well. And then, or you could waive the inspections entirely, which is the most risky option, but also the most appealing option to the seller. So obviously more risk, more reward, kind of a thing that goes throughout life with us. And then guarantee the appraisal up to a certain point. You could say the same thing, just like with the inspection. You could say that, the house, you might be buying a house for $350, and it maybe you could say if it appraises for anything under, if it appraises between $345 and $5,000, I'll cover the difference. But if it appraises for anything under $345, then we have to have a conversation. So you could say that too. And then you could be, this is the obvious one. You could just offer more money or be a financially stronger buyer. So this is where being a strong buyer comes into play, when you can put down 20% or 25% or pay cash for a house, as those are obviously your best bets. And if you don't have that, to be financially stronger, then you could just try to up the asking price or up your offer price to a higher number. But assuming that now we're past the bidding war parts, like, I wanted to give you guys all that bidding war stuff so you could use it to help win. But now assuming that we're past the bidding war, the offer's been accepted, you put your first deposit down. Now we're at the inspections and due diligence period. So let's look into that a little bit. This is basically the second negotiation. The first negotiation was when you were making the offer, deciding on what the terms were, the price, and things like that, the closing date, things like that. Now we're doing the inspection. Let's find out what's wrong with this house, and Mr. Seller or Mrs. Seller, or who's going to fix this thing and how, and who's going to pay for it and whatnot. So here's the thing. Don't ever go into a home purchase thinking everything's going to be okay and it's going to be a perfect score. That never happens. It never has happened on any home that I've ever sold, and I've sold quite a ton of homes. So there's always something going to be wrong. Just expect that. Know that going in, that it's not about question about what, if something's wrong, it's what's wrong and how serious is it. That's the question you should be asking yourself. The unwritten rule here is when you get your inspection report back, don't ask for everything. It is literally the equivalent of the seller putting their hand out to shake your hand and you slapping them across the face. Do not ask for everything. It's such a good way to kill rapport with the seller, and it's a good way to be extremely offensive. The best thing, like if there's broken light bulbs or something, don't worry about the broken light bulbs. Let's focus on the fact that the roof is leaking, or that the basement is leaking, or the hot water heater needs to be replaced. Focus on those big ticket items. Don't worry about a busted light bulb or a weird door latch or something like that. Those little items can be dealt with after you move in. So focus on the big ticket items is basically what I'm saying. And then you're going to negotiate over what needs to be fixed, and you'll also have an option to ask for a credit instead of having the seller fix it, which is what I like to do better, because asking for a credit means now you get the money and you get to pick who does the work. You could pick your own contractor and get the work done, because obviously the seller might just go with a cheap option just to save on some money and just get Joe from the corner to do the work, and I really don't like that as much. So I prefer to get a credit, get some money for it, and then you can get your own professional to do the work. Common documents at this stage, you'll see the reply to inspection. This is your formal reply to tell the seller, hey, this is all the items I found and these are the ones I want fixed. Your change in terms, once you guys come to an agreement, you write it all into this change in terms addendum and solidify those agreements. And then your second deposit check. If you're putting 20% down, this second deposit check is usually about 5% of the sale price. If you're not putting 20% down, let's say you're putting 3% down, it's probably another extra $2,000 or $3,000. So somewhere in there, in that range. So let's move right into the timeline here. So this is the fun part. The timeline, after we get past the inspection, most of the hard stuff is behind you. Deals that do fall apart, 90% of the time they fall apart in the inspection. After you get past that, it's almost pretty certain that the deal is going to be pretty well off, as long as the appraisal doesn't come in really bad, which that's what we're going to talk about. So we're going to schedule and conduct the appraisal. The appraisal is something that's done by the banks, and this isn't something you participate in as a buyer, something I'm not participating in as your agent. It's usually they call the listing agent, they say we're coming out to appraise the property, the listing agent goes out and meets the appraiser there, all that stuff. And as long as the value comes in, we're good. So then you want to set a date for settlement, and then you obviously mark your calendar. Settlement is going to be about 60 to 90 minutes long. Obtain a certified check for settlement and closing costs. So your closing costs in Philadelphia County are going to be about 5% of the purchase price. And the certified check that you need to bring to settlement for the remaining money of your down payment needs to go. You'll get that money from your mortgage lender. So on settlement day, you're going to need 2 forms of photo ID. You're going to need a certified check for that, whatever the amount the mortgage lender tells you. You bring a personal check just in case for whatever reason. It's always good to have a personal check with you at settlement for whatever reason. I've never seen anyone have to use one, but they tell you to bring one, so I'm telling you to bring one too. And then obviously you would need a proof of homeowner's insurance just to show your mortgage lender or the bank that's giving you this loan that, hey, look, we are insured, we are good, nothing to worry about. Okay, so I threw this slide in because I didn't want you to think that I just skipped over what happens if it doesn't appraise. So here's what happens. So if it's at or above the sale price, like I said, it's all good. If it's not below the sale price, the appraisal means this is the third negotiation. Hopefully, I'd say 1 out of every 30 deals will get an appraisal, at least in my career. 1 out of every 30 deals will probably not appraise. So it's not very common, but it can happen. A buyer puts more money down. So here's the solution here. Buyer will put more money down. The seller will reduce the price, or a combination of both. And if we can't reach an agreement, then a termination will occur where the buyer just has to get their deposit money back, and the mortgage doesn't go through, so therefore the purchase doesn't go through, and the deal ends. So common documents you'll see you'll see the change in terms. Again, whenever a negotiation happens, you come to new terms, you sign this change in terms addendum, solidifies the changes. and then obviously the appraisal. So that comes from the bank. So nothing too exciting there, but I wanted to just walk you guys through that real quick. Okay, so we've won the bidding war. We've got our offer accepted. We've put down our deposit. We've done our inspection. We put down our second deposit. We got past the appraisal, and now we're just basically home free here. This is where we're preparing for and reaching settlement. So we're going to go right into this. It's basically settlement has to occur on a weekday between 9 and 5 because that's when the title company is open. So it's, like I said before, it's going to take about 60 to 90 minutes, and this is where the ownership is transferred from the seller to the buyer. This is where the deed now changes ownership. This is also where your mortgage is started, and basically the next 30 years of your life are promised here at this settlement table. And closing costs, at least in Philadelphia County, are about 5% of the sale price. So a $200,000 home is going to be about $210,000 all in. If you're in the suburbs, it's going to be a little bit cheaper than this because the taxes and transfer taxes and whatever else is not as expensive as in the city. So as a buyer, your main closing costs that you're going to see are going to be your mortgage origination, your transfer tax, and your title insurance. Your title insurance basically securing you from inheriting any bad unpaid bills behind the walls that nobody ever told you about. Title insurance lasts the entire, you pay it one time in settlement, and it lasts the entire time you own the home. You will owe, and like we already talked about this, guys, the things you'll need at settlement: 2 forms of ID, a certified check, a personal check, and proof of homeowner's insurance. Okay, so now you've bought a house. Like, now what? Now you've settled on your house. Now you coordinate your move. You probably should have been coordinating your move prior to settlement too, but just in case you haven't, now's a good time. So you want to change utilities into your name the day of settlement, because sometimes the utility companies will ask for a proof of ownership, and you won't have that proof until after settlement. So I usually tell people to do it right after settlement, or the day of, as long as it's after. Thank and refer your realtor for. Actually, I put this in for me. Thanks and refer your realtor, your family and friends. Guys, that bullet point's for me. Just let you know. Sorry. I told you guys not a sales pitch. So that's not what it is. Change of address cards to your family and friends. So actually, I will do this for my clients. If you when we buy a house together, I'll ask for my clients to send me all of their friends and family addresses, and I'll send it out to all of them for them. Just something that I do. I'm sure there's other real estate agents that do it, but it's something that if your real estate agent isn't going to do it, you should do it too, so everybody knows where you live. So your friends and family members know where you live. And then plan a housewarming party. Obviously, you just bought a house. Like, let's celebrate a little bit, have a good time. Invite your real estate agent, whether it's me or somebody else. It's always good to keep in touch with your real estate agent too. And then notify your accountant. So that way you don't call your real estate agent up in tax season and be like, hey, I don't have any of my settlement paper. Well, as soon as you settle and get all that settlement documentation, scan it, put it in a digital PDF, and then email it to your accountant so that they can account for that in your taxes at the end of the year. Then you're going to get into some frequently asked questions here before we wrap up. What happens if something horribly goes wrong in the inspection? We no longer want to proceed with the purchase. Common question, happens all the time. Yes, you can back out of the deal without losing your deposit if something really goes bad, as long as you have a contingency for that. Now, if you waived your inspections, then you would have to forego your deposit. You wouldn't get your deposit back. You can get out of the deal, but you're going to lose your deposit. So that's why it's, again, that's a risky option. So to waive inspections. So that's why we have that in contingency, so you don't lose your deposit. Do my deposit go toward my down payment? Yes, they do. First and second deposit will both go towards your down payment, and you'll be bringing the difference to settlement. And where does my deposit money go? Does the seller get it? And the answer is no. The seller never gets your money, because they could just disappear with your money and run off and disappear into the oblivion, and we'll never get your money back. So it actually goes into an escrow account, and that money gets released at settlement to the seller via the title company. So guys, that's pretty much all I got for you. If you have any questions about anything in the home buying process, whether it's real estate related with me, you can talk to me as a real estate agent. If you have mortgage questions, I put one of my best mortgage guys here. His name's Mike Devani. All of his contact information is right here as well. Feel free to email him, text him, call him, whatever. He's incredibly good at his job. So that's why I do recommend him to everybody that I work with. So guys, I hope you guys have gotten a lot of value out of this. If you have any questions, like I said, all my information is here. And I will look forward to talking to you guys sometime soon.